HIPcast is brought to you by Enterprise Social Record, and that is normally where I stop talking and I hand it off to Shannon to do a full intro of what's going to happen today and what we're going to talk about. But as things happen, life happens, Shannon woke up this morning and the wonderful flu bug has visited her household, and we decided to move forward with this. So today you get just me as the HIPcast host. So we miss you, Shannon. We hope you're doing well. But we also have Cindy Spann. So welcome to HIPcast, Cindy.
Good morning.
So today we're going to talk about AHIMA Fellowship. So I sat on the AHIMA Fellowship committee with Cindy for a while there, enjoyed that, had a good time with that process. And as we were thinking about different things of our profession, as we want to highlight stuff with HIPcast, highlight professionals and different aspects of our profession, one of the things that popped in my head was fellowship with our national association. So today we're going to talk about what that is, what it means to a professional, kind of what members should consider when it comes to seeking fellowship with AHIMA. But as always, we start the conversation wanting to get to know our HI professional that we have today. So Cindy, tell us about your HI journey.
More than happy to do that. So I'm Cindy Spann. I'll start with maybe what I currently do and then tell you how I got here. So I am currently the Executive Director of Health Information Management at Community Health Network. That is in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I've been here for 16 years now. So time flies. Seems like I just came here, but 16 years later, still here doing all things HIM. But how did I get here? That is it's an interesting story because I think I didn't know what HIM was when I was a student. I definitely didn't know that. So I was a biology major at Indiana University, thinking I wanted to be an eye doctor. That's where I was headed, and then realized pretty quickly, maybe about a year into school, doing all my prereqs, hey, that's not what I want to do. But what do I want to do? I like science. Started to think about business, and so was talking to my parents. I might switch from science to business. That's a pretty big swing. And my mom was talking to actually one of her friends, and her friend said, hey, I have a daughter who's in HIM. It is a great mix of business and science.
Mm-hmm.
You need to talk to her. And she actually connected me with her daughter, who was in the profession, so, had been in HIM for a while. And she came to Bloomington, took me to lunch, told me all about HIM and all the things and why, it was a good mix of science and business, what she did. She actually worked in a hospital in the quality department. But she started in the HIM department, but had migrated to quality. So told me about all the things that she was doing, and about coding and kind of that's where she started in the HIM world. And I switched my major. I mean, right after one lunch with her, I realized that is a great mix of science and business. I don't want to really just do business. I really like science, but I don't really want to go to school for all those years to be an eye doctor. And so I switched my major at that point and, finished my education. I did my first 3 years in Bloomington, then I did my last year at the Indianapolis campus because that's where the HIM program was located. And then right out of school, my first job was a coder. So I started my career as a coder at a level 1 trauma center. Got to learn and see a lot of crazy things as a coder there. They had a burn unit, and so I got to see and code a lot of different things. It was a great place to learn to be a coder. It was about an hour away from my house, so I was like, ooh, that was back in the paper chart days. So I had to drive every day to work and clock in and do all that fun stuff. So the moment a job came open closer to my house, I then switched, and I was still a coder, but more in a lead coder role when I started migrating from that. And I would honestly say never really left coding for a long time. So it just kept migrating. I was at Columbus Regional Hospital before community for about 15 years. So really, I, worked at that level 1 trauma center about 1 year, and then I've only worked at 2 other places in my 30-year career. So, but I would also say, especially for students that are listening, I had 7 different positions at Columbus. So I was there for a long time, but I started as lead coder. I moved to decision support services, and you're thinking, what is a person in HIM doing there? I did a lot of chart review, and I used my coding knowledge to pull reports. I helped them do a lot of integration when they brought on new systems, and so I did training. I got to experience and do a lot of different things. So my 7 different roles there were varying. One time we tried to combine utilization review with coding. Interesting concept. So trying to train the UR nurses how to be coders, tried to train the coders how to be UR nurses. Those of us that are coders, and most of us in HIM, we don't really want to be on a nursing unit talking to doctors
No.
and patients. That's where they wanted the UR component to occur. So I did that. It was not my favorite. I learned how to do it. And then they learned right away you really can't combine those 2 roles, because the UR nurse is sitting on the phone a lot with the payer, the insurance company, and there's no time for coding. So if you have your coders doing that, who's coding the records? I mean, nobody was really getting coding done. So that was about a 9-month adventure, I would say, me getting to learn some different things. And my area reported up through the CNO. So, through the chief nursing officer. So I think that was probably why that was explored and, tried to do some different things. But then it split back apart. So I went back to my HIM world, and eventually became the manager over coding and analysis. Moved eventually into the director of HIM. I had privacy for a little bit. And then when I left Columbus, I was actually the interim director of IT, as well as HIM and the privacy officer. So I had gotten my master's degree about 10 years after my HIM bachelor's degree, and my master's degree is in information science. It's not specific to healthcare. I purposely did that thinking maybe someday I won't want healthcare. I don't know. I don't know what this world's going to look like. So learned lots of different things in that area. It was from the School of Library and Information Science, but I thought IT was where I wanted to be. I'll be honest. So, listening, I know you're in IT, and I was like, I think IT is where I want to go. I reported to the CIO as the director of HIM for a long time, and he was amazing, and I loved, his philosophy and his strategy. But in my short time as IT director, a lot of that role, and it might have been specific to that organization, was really about vendor management, contract negotiation. Not my favorite thing to do.
It's a lot of
So,
it.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, invoices, and are we getting, charged the correct thing from the contract? And that's all important, really important. Um, but I was like, ew, I don't really like that. I really like HIM. So when the opportunity came for me to come to Community Health Network, I was like, hey, wasn't really looking for a role, but I'm open to explore new options. The director here was retiring after 45 years. She'd been at Community Health Network for 45 years. And I had met her at an HIM kind of professionals group that we had, where we got together and talked about challenges and, just networked. And she reached out and said, hey, I'm retiring. Would you be interested in my role? And so that is kind of how this profession works too. I would share with, you know, emerging young people who are joining the profession, like, don't ever remember, they may remember you. So, make a good impression. I had no idea, honestly, that she even knew who I was. I'll be honest. And she reached out and said, I'm really trying to help my boss kind of recruit some good candidates for this role. I would really love for you to apply. And I really had never thought that I would leave Columbus. I thought I'd retire from there. To be honest, I really liked it. It was a smaller town hospital, but I was like, ooh, when could I ever go to a system where I won't have to move? I really could still drive. It would be a commute, but I wouldn't have to move to another state. I wouldn't have to move to a different part of even the state that I live in. And so I was like, you might as well apply, even if you're really kind of not interested. And now I've been here 16 years. So you just never know where you start. I think what you might find along the way. And I really never said no. I accepted a lot of interesting challenges. That's how I ended up in decision support services, and took a lot of interesting roles in that IT role. I didn't have to say yes to being an interim director of IT, but it gave me some great experience to know whether that's where I wanted to be or
Hmm.
whether I wanted to stay in HIM. So
Well, there's a
that's
ton of
kind of
great
my
nuggets
journey.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton of great nuggets there for folks that are listening because, um, yeah, just a handful that pop in the brain is their stability in this profession. You can get into a position or at least an organization, and there's a lot of stability for a career path, for a long career path. But there's
Correct.
also options. You can move to different roles within a department, within a facility, within an organization, and really expand your horizons, expand your knowledge base, and that opens up the door for new opportunities to go into IT. I ran away from coding as soon as I got out of school. That was not my
I think
place.
people either run away or run to it, right?
Yeah,
There's no in between.
not my place, and I got out of there as quickly as possible away from coding. It is funny also that I want to touch a little bit on the networking and mentorship side before we switch gears, but it is interesting the connection of having lunch with someone and kind of mentoring you on what the profession is. Back when HIM was in quality and had the
Right.
quality department, because in my HIM school, when I went through our management rotation, the HM director that I was assigned to, she sat me with the quality director for a while, and I got to work on some quality projects. And it's like we should have always kept quality, honestly.
Right.
A little bit of a side rant there, but that quality should have been ours, and it was at one point. But the other piece that I want to touch on there is the networking side. It's so important because it is a small community and everybody talks to each other, and we all have, it's not even 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's the three
Right.
degrees of the HIM professional that I can probably get to somebody fairly quickly through connections that we know. And a lot of my jobs in HIM came from moving and talking to folks at the local association events and state association events. So anything to add on the networking side? Because I think that's critically important.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I would also share, I didn't share along my journey, but right before I accepted the job at Community, I had just become the state president for Indiana. And that is where most of my opportunities to connect with professionals, came from. So I had been a volunteer on the local level, and, really had just been a volunteer at the state level for 1 year. And they asked me if I wanted to continue and then said, "Can you be president?" I was like, "Oh, sure."
Yeah.
But I got to go all across the state, talk to HIM professionals from everywhere. And a lot of people know me now from my stint as president-elect, past president, reach out to me. And I agree, we're small. I mean, I don't think people realize what a small connected profession we are. And it's not just at the state level. It is
Yeah.
national. Once you become like on the HIMA fellowship committee or any task force or committee, you make those connections, and now we have people that we know across the whole United States, which is awesome. And we can network and really share opportunities. And I think for students that's really important. You
Yeah.
need to realize even your first experience as a student, what is happening. You are making that connection for your career, right as a student.
Yeah, that's very true. And I've had the opportunity to volunteer at my state association for a long time. And that's what, HIPcast is a benefit to our state association's foundation for scholarships. And the state, I love my state. It's a second family. It really is. And our annual meeting's coming up. So it's like I get to see my people
Yeah.
that I get to see periodically. And then even at the national level, serving in the House of Delegates and doing different things at the national level. It's funny because the day job, I support an organization that sells into healthcare, but it's normally IT. But it is fun to be at a hospital or a facility, corporate office, something like that, and I'll say, hold on just a second, I'm going to pop my head in the medical records department and see somebody that I know or I hadn't seen in
Yeah.
years since a national event or something like that's always fun. And a lot of our sales teams are like, how do you know all these people? It's like, HIM, man, we know everybody.
That's right, right. I mean, and I think the longer you've been in it, you just have more experience and exposure,
That's true.
across the way as well. But we even keep a mentoring group within our state where quarterly we call it an HIM professionals meeting. And it's really just to talk about more of those hot topics. What are our challenges? Because we all have them and they're almost all the same. But maybe somebody's figured out a way and they can share, with you, hey, this is what we're doing and, this is what we're experiencing or this is what we're seeing. How are you fixing it? What are you guys working on? We often all share a lot of the same EMRs. So what are the
Mm-hmm.
challenges there? What can we, share and learn and do? And that's a great, great experience too. And we don't do that even part of our state. We just do it as kind of HIM people. We have to get together with our people and have those conversations. And I would also share I work at a pretty large network. We have about 16, 17,000 employees. But we have HIM professionals in lots of places that people would be surprised probably. We have IT analysts that are HIM professionals. We have people sitting in privacy and compliance, security. The HIM department, of course, has the majority of them, but I think they're hidden all over our organization. So, you can use a lot with your HIM degree. You have to kind of get the foundation, but once you have that, there's a lot of places you can go.
Yeah, I like the hot topics. Recently, the state of Tennessee did what we called a member hang, and we just had a teams event to where we got on and just introduced each other. And some folks I knew, some folks I didn't know. They may not have been to an annual meeting before where I've gotten to meet them in person, but it was kind of fun just to get to talk to people and hear about what's going on and see new faces. But I like the idea of adding some hot topics. What's
Yeah.
burning out there for folks. We're going to have to do that at our next member hang. So, well, let's shift gears. You're the chair of the AHIMA Fellowship Committee. Tell our audience what AHIMA Fellowship is.
Yeah, so AHIMA Fellowship is an earned recognition program for AHIMA members, and it's really looking at people who've made significant, sustained contributions to our field, our profession from the health information perspective. And it's way more than a credential. I think people often ask me, is this just another credential that you have to maintain? Or I'm like, oh no, it's way more than a credential. It really is a career milestone. I mean, you have it, so hopefully, you could even share your perspective a little bit too. But it really is designed to honor those health information professionals kind of through lots of different avenues: advocacy, innovation, leadership, education, knowledge sharing. And we always say that fellows really embody AHIMA's mission to empower people to impact health. So, really that's the group of HIM or health information professionals we're looking for from the AHIMA fellow perspective. And I don't know if it was on your radar that, to become an AHIMA fellow, but it wasn't on mine. I mean, I share this too. It's like, that wasn't really a milestone that I knew a lot about. But along the way, someone said, hey, you've done, all of these different things in your career. You've volunteered a lot at the state level. You have a little bit of, national volunteer experience. You should think about becoming an AHIMA fellow. And I was like, what does that mean? I've not heard a lot about that. So I'm really glad to be on today to share more about this program, because I think if you don't know about it and you meet the eligibility requirements, we would love for you to apply to be an HEMA fellow.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on my radar. And then I was like, oh, I should go look at eligibility. And, then I start tracking it and I'm like, oh, I think I could be pretty close to this. This is a goal. Now I want that on my list as well.
Yeah. That's so that I didn't know about it myself. And then I think at some point, it might have been 2019, 2020, I was a bit frustrated with things at the national level. And I said, you know what, I'm going to run for board president and see if I can affect change at that level. and started doing some research on different things, trying to find the requirements for elected positions with the National Association. And that's when I stumbled across the fellowship page on AHIMA's website, and I was like, all right, I didn't know this was a thing. So, standard story, the shiny object caught the eye, and I just started chasing that rabbit down that trail, going, what is this? And looking at the requirements, I started writing down, all right, do you meet this requirement? Do you meet this requirement? And luckily, during the pandemic, there wasn't too terribly much going on. I had plenty of time at the house, and I went through that eligibility criteria, and I thought, I meet all the requirements for this. I didn't even know this existed, but I've hit all the metrics. So I applied and was granted fellowship during the pandemic, which was fun.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was a great thing. And now it's fun to get to encourage folks to go and look at that. And I think that's been an interesting way, a strategy per se, to utilize to get people to do more with their HIM education, with their experience for the profession. Because I can tell them, hey, go look at the requirements and eligibility criteria and see where you are, and then you can quickly figure out what areas you need to work in. And all right, go volunteer on a committee. Go
correct.
Do some publishing if you're in education, or you just happen to be a creative type. So to me, it's an opportunity to encourage those professionals to do a little bit more and then seek the fellowship.
Yeah, I love that. I love that thought. And I tell people often, if you know about it, now that you know about it, and if it is something that you want to pursue, start looking at the eligibility requirements early, right? And start trying to document it. I think that's the biggest piece for those of us who've been in the profession a long time, trying to pull back all the presentations we've completed, or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is a challenge. Like, I didn't keep a list anywhere. I didn't really have an updated CV with all of those things in one summary. So if that is on your radar, I would say, hey, start trying to keep a list of your volunteer experiences. If you've been on a podcast, if you completed a webinar, if you are a presenter at any conference or webinar or any of those things, those are all options that might help you with your eligibility requirements. So that is kind of some advice too. If it's on your list, and now that you know about it, start kind of making your gathering of your documents, because that, I think, is the biggest challenge we've heard from many, and probably helps and honestly deters people from applying, right? When they see it, they're like, oh,
yeah,
I've been in this profession a long time and I don't have all that information. But if you keep, kind of your resume, CV updated, and try to keep some of those speaking engagements and volunteer experiences and the years that you were a volunteer kind of more up to date, that will help you a ton being able to apply.
Absolutely. So what are those qualifications, or at least are there tools that folks can utilize if they're interested in seeking fellowship or fellow
So
status?
I'll talk a little bit about eligibility first, and then I can kind of share some of the tools as well. So it's pretty rigorous. I think we both know that. We've both applied and have become a fellow. But the first couple of requirements are at least 10 years of cumulative full-time experience in health information or related fields. So, you have to start making sure you meet kind of the minimum requirements before you have to gather any of the harder information. 10 years of consecutive AHIMA membership. So that's important from an AHIMA perspective. Master's degree or higher. We often get questions about that one, like, oh, should that be required? But when you're thinking about recognizing professionals who've really sustained excellence and advanced the HI profession, wouldn't we want them to have a master's degree or higher if we're recognizing them from an AHIMA fellow perspective? Your AHIMA credentials need to be in good standing, so, up to date and meeting all the certification requirements. And then really that's when you start looking at what are those demonstrated professional achievements that you've met. So and that's where we start talking about leadership, innovation. What have you done to contribute to kind of the HI community and profession? And there's some minimum point requirements and all of those pieces and parts. So there is a link on the AHIMA website specific to fellowship. If you want all of the details, I won't read all of them to you today, but that's where they're all at. And, I would also say if you think, this is something I'm interested in, but I'm not sure I'm there yet. So maybe you don't have your 10 years of cumulative experience or 10 years of consecutive AHIMA membership yet. I would say don't not look at it. Now's the time to actually take a look, because you could be a candidate. So we do have a candidacy as well. And that would be someone with 5 years of experience in health information, 5 years of cumulative AHIMA experience, a master's degree. Maybe they're just early on in their, participation in the profession from a contribution perspective with speaking engagements and volunteer experiences. But you can be a candidate for 1 to 5 years. So if you're close, we would put you in that candidacy status. You have some opportunity. We would actually assign a mentor from the AHIMA Fellow Committee to you to help you. So, if you're not sure, how do I get there? Let us help you look at kind of your application and say, okay, this is where we think you should go next. Maybe you need to volunteer on another of your state committees or a task force for AHIMA. Maybe, could you publish an article? Are you interested in that? What are you interested in? Are you interested in writing? Have you had any experience writing publications? Maybe there's more opportunity there for you. So we are more than happy to partner with those people in candidacy to help them get to the place where they become a HIMA fellow. And we assign a one-on-one mentor from the committee to that candidate. And that's been a great experience too. I've done that a few times with people, and they didn't realize that maybe they didn't have enough points. And so to help them kind of with the tools aren't always perfect, and we're working on trying to improve some of our tools and application process. So hopefully that will get better too. But yeah, really, there is kind of an eligibility guide, and there's a whole worksheet that you can, I don't know if you printed it out, but that's how I kind of tracked how I was doing. So I printed it out and started kind of going down one by one to say, hey, where am I at on the eligibility track? What have I met? What haven't I met? Do I need to do some, finish some of my volunteer experiences at the state or national level, or even more of a local level? All of those, all of those count. Do I need to, volunteer to be a presenter? Some of us don't like to do that. Some of us are not a problem doing that, but that gives you points as well. Publications, all of those pieces and parts. And I know not everybody likes to do all of the things. So I think there's enough differentiating pieces and parts in there that you should be able to find something to help you meet the eligibility requirements. It's not just all volunteer. Volunteer is a big piece. I mean, we do want people who are giving back to the profession. And so that is a big category in our application. But it's a lot of other pieces and parts too that make up kind of how are we giving back to the health information profession. So that was a lot. I don't know. I could probably go more details too.
No, it's really good, and I'll try to put the link to the website in the show notes here, so that'll be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube, and try to put it in the LinkedIn post as well. So just to encourage folks to go check it out. And you're right, it can seem a bit overwhelming when you look at all of that, but call me old, but I'm the same way. I print it out and I mark it and highlight things and make notes. Yeah. And so print it out, check it out, see what you have, what you lack. Maybe we need to seek an additional piece on there for podcast guests if they don't want to go speak in front of a large audience. Well, we live and breathe in the virtual world. So if you want to be a podcast guest, maybe we can get that added as an eligibility requirement, or not requirement, but at least something that will help folks. But yeah, the tools are fantastic, and it is a kind of not a crowning achievement. It's not like I'm done in my career, but it is something that I'm like, what? As I look back on my career and what I've been able to work on and accomplish, it's a moment of being proud that wow, I've done quite a bit. I've had the chance to speak, I've had a chance to volunteer, I've had a chance to lead, and it's a good recognition for members.
Yeah, and it's a lifelong, honor. So, I mean, as long as your AHIMA, credential is in good standing and you meet the AHIMA code of ethics, which hopefully all of us are doing, it's a lifelong honor that stays with you. So it's not like a credential that you have to do things, but they do want us to give back, and they want us to help grow, those emerging leaders and all of those pieces and parts, and work together as AHIMA fellows on what can we do to help the profession too, because we have a lot of experience to offer. We've seen a lot of things in our careers over the paper to the electronic and all of the parts in between. So, we do ask that they give back as well. But it is an honor, and I just realized preparing for this podcast. So I've been a HEMA fellow since 2017, and I was like, that's almost 10 years already.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seems like it just happened yesterday, but now it's already been 10 years.
It's pretty amazing. Any
Yep.
final encouragement to those that are thinking about it or just now learning that fellowship is an option?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you really are interested, and take a look at the link, that will be posted. Um, think about a CV. So, if you don't have a curriculum vitae, that is definitely something that you have to start putting together, some recommendation letters, who might be willing to do that for you. Those are the things I would start to think about. And then, there are a few essays. So, you might want to just think about what could you have to offer in your essays. I didn't think, you never know, like what would I put in an essay? But I was at Columbus when there was a flood, 100-year flood, and our hospital was closed for 6 months, and it was an experience. So I talked a lot in my essay about that and what I used, for my health information experience, and how we kept on going, and now they're back up running, just like it never happened, which is kind of crazy. But you just don't know what you have to offer, I think, from an essay perspective either. So I would say take a look at those and start to think about what in your career, could you offer, from an essay perspective. But I would truly just kind of say, from an AHIMA fellow perspective, it really sets you apart as a HIM professional, as a trusted leader in health information. So, I mean, I think when people see that, I mean, I know when I see that now, I'm like, oh, I didn't know they were a fellow. Like
Mm-hmm.
now I know that, and I might have a different conversation with them from that perspective. Maybe ask when they became a fellow, and what drove them to become a fellow. I might ask them different questions because I know, that they're a fellow as well. But it truly does show a commitment to the profession, a history of, I mean, it is kind of a historical kind of showing your accomplishments and making sure you're recognized for those accomplishments. Dedication to the HI field, for future generations. I mean, I think it's really important. We all know that, it's changing a lot. I mean, technology is changing a lot, and we know our profession's going to change, but it needs to stay, and we need to make it relevant. And as things change, we want to make sure that we're still supporting the HI profession and advancing it, and making sure that it changes as technology changes. And then, I think it really is finally just a way to celebrate and sustain excellence in health information. So for me, being the chair, I love seeing these applications. It's so exciting to see all of the people in health information and all the broad things that they do. I mean, I'm amazed at some of the people and where they work. We have HIM professionals all over the place in the
Mm-hmm.
United States, and they're doing amazing work. And I don't think it always gets showcased, to be honest. So when I'm reading these essays, I'm like blown away at what HI professionals are doing. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
And
they've got.
I would end with, the deadlines for 2026. So the application deadlines, I think that's really important. One coming up in March, so March 6th, June 5th, September 4th, and November 6th. So if you're close and you're thinking about applying, those are kind of our application deadlines, and we review right after as a committee, and then let people know right away if they're awarded the AHIMA Fellow.
No, that's a very good point to remember, is the application deadlines. And this episode comes out on February 23rd, so very close turnaround if you're trying to hit the March date,
Yeah.
but you have opportunities throughout the year. So, Cindy, thanks for joining HIPcast and sharing with our audience about AHIMA Fellowship. It's been a pleasure.
You are so welcome.
And normally I tell Shannon, until next time, my friend, because I don't say goodbyes, because I don't think that there's ever a good moment to say goodbye. I just want to see you again at some point. So I'll just say until next time, my friend, and then we'll end it there.